Welcome to the Genius Talk podcast. I'm your host Atul Raj from the bestemailmarketer.com, and today we have Gloria Vanderhorst with us. Gloria, thank you so much for joining and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to a great conversation.
Yep. Okay, so for our listeners who don't know you, can you tell them who you are and what do you do?
I'm a psychologist, and I've been in private practice for 50 years, which is a very long time. And I have worked with preschoolers all the way up through aging adults. So I've covered the lifespan and what to talk about, what happens as we mature and live our lives.
Okay, so how do you ended up in psychology?
I ended up in psychology through math. I wanted to be a math teacher. I loved math. Math was really easy for me. And so I decided that would be the great path for me is to end up teaching high school math. And in my junior year, actually, I planned and was successful in finishing college in 3 years instead of the regular 4. But I ran into Calculus 2 and discovered I really wasn't going to be a math major. Calculus 2 was way too difficult to understand. And so I immediately flipped my major and my minor, which was psychology, and never looked back. So I've really enjoyed the study of people and working with people.
Okay, so you mostly work with men and boys. So why are you drawn to working with men and boys?
It's by accident, really, or by fate, some people would say. But when I started my private practice, I had a friend who ran a preschool. And so if they had concerns about any of their children in the preschool needed testing for any reason, I was referred those families. And most of them were boys because preschools are run by women, and women don't like the energy of boys inside a structured situation, right? If you're out on the playground, go for it. But if you're in the classroom, women want you to sit in the circle and follow directions. And boys are busy, right? They're full of the energy. The little girl will sit in the circle and listen to the story. The boy will fidget. He needs to move. He's still listening to the story. He's still understanding the story. And so little boys in preschools tend to stand out, and then they get question marked. Is there something wrong with this little guy? Because he won't sit in the circle and he always wants to climb on the table. Probably there's nothing wrong with him, but they get referred for psychological evaluation, for educational evaluations. And so that's how the whole process started. And as I worked with the boys and evaluated boys, their fathers discovered that they had had very similar situations. And so their fathers started to put themselves on my calendar and want to understand more about their own history and how it impacted them as adults.
Can you talk about a story of someone that you have worked with?
Yeah, that's real easy to do. So I'll give you 2 stories, right? One from a little boy who really taught me what happens to male children at a very young age. We trained little boys not to express themselves emotionally. Right? We welcome little girls with their emotionality. They can cry, they can get super excited. They can chatter away all the time. But little boys are not supposed to cry. So I worked with this one preschooler whose parents brought him in because they were separated and he was moving back and forth between 2 houses and he was acting out in each house. He was not comfortable in either place. So after working with him for a while, we started to talk about his crying because he did a lot of crying in both places. And he ended up describing to me what it was like for him to cry. And he said, my tears never come out, right? I take my tears and I swallow them and I put them in my tummy and they turn into rocks, right? And then they start moving around and they just come up and out of my arms, and I just throw stuff all over the room, which is actually what he had been doing. Right? He'd get distressed and then he would act out. So he understood his own emotionality, but what he communicated is that the world around him doesn't want him to express it in terms of tears. He's not supposed to cry. So we educate little boys at the preschool level that you're not supposed to cry. And so what do you do instead? All right, you get mad, you act out. So that was a beautiful education for me to really appreciate that we train our boys to withhold their feeling states at a very, very young age. And so their only solution is to use their bodies, right? Is to elbow somebody, is to move around, is to bump into somebody, is to throw things, is to use your fists. It was a perfect description of how we relate to boys in this culture.
Okay, so what myth about strong men annoys you the most?
Yeah, it isn't the strength itself, right? Everyone should have a strong resource. We should all be capable of being strong, right? We shouldn't always have to look to the male to do the hard thing in a situation. Men and women should both be strong. But what we do, as I just demonstrated, starting at the preschool level, is that we deny men access to the full range of feelings. They're not supposed to cry. If they are distressed, the only way that it should be expressed is in terms of anger. You can act that out, right? But you can't act out disappointment, sadness. I mean, go to a funeral, right? And you will find every man in the room working hard, right, to hold back tears, right? You've just lost someone tremendously important to you in your life, all right? Crying is a natural, normal response to loss. It is a healing, right? It is a, washing out of that sadness. But you will find the male who's lost someone significant to him standing there trying not to cry. I mean, that's ridiculous. You're a human being. You should have access to the full range of emotional expression. And when you've lost someone important to you, you better believe it's healthy to cry. It's appropriate to cry. You're designed to cry because that helps the healing process.
What role does mental health plays in other parts of our lives?
Well, if you limit access to a full range of emotions, and we do that actively, we do that very directly. We tell little boys not to cry. I tell people, go to a playground, go to a mall, watch preschoolers playing and interacting, all right? A little girl either gets physically hurt or maybe she gets bumped out of line for the slide, all right? And she gets emotionally hurt. She starts to cry. She'll go over to a parent, and the parent will pick her up and ask her, "What's wrong? What happened?" All right. Listen to the explanation, calm her, and encourage her to go back and get in line for the slide again. Little boy, exactly same experience, goes up to the parent, and the parent goes, "What's wrong?" He doesn't get picked up. He doesn't get comforted. He has to justify his crying. And if he gives a good enough explanation, right, maybe he'll
Yeah.
get some comfort. You're okay, right? He won't get picked up. He'll just get some verbiage, right? And then he gets sent back. All right. This is unhealthy, right? Our skin is the largest organ in our body. When we are distressed, we need to be touched. We need comfort, all right? Picking up that preschooler, holding that child, providing comfort, all right, calms the whole system. So what we do with little boys when we just kind of pat them on the head or don't touch them at all and send them back in is to devalue them, right? Is to educate them that their expression of emotion, their need for comfort doesn't belong. And we should stop doing that. That's not healthy.
Why do men have more difficulty with relationships?
Relationships. Well, just think of what we've described, right? From the preschool age. Actually, we could go back to infancy because mothers and caretakers treat boys differently as well. They don't like them to cry. But when you limit a human being's access to their skill set, right? And expressing emotion is a valuable skill set. But when you tell someone you can't learn that, all right, so think of it. What if you decided to tell girls you can't learn math, right? And you deny them access to math and you don't teach them math, all right, you're putting serious limitations on that population. We're doing the same thing to boys. All right. We tell them you cannot express emotion on this end of the range. Anything that goes into sad, tender, loving, those you're not supposed to have access to. And you certainly should not complain, right, about either emotional injury or physical injury. You're supposed to be tough. You're supposed to buck up and just move on, right? Even though you're bleeding, pretend you're not and
Yeah,
keep going. Turn around, go back on the slide.
actually,
It's destructive to
mhm.
relationship, all right? So the reason that divorces top 50% and the stats will tell you that the divorce rate is going down, that's a lie. It's not going down. The truth of the matter is people are not getting formally married anymore, all right? So they don't have a court document that they have to go undo, so they're not appearing in court to go through a divorce. They're just separating and taking their belongings and going into two different places. Relationships are very difficult for men and women because we have limited the male's access to understanding a variety of feeling states for himself and for his mate.
So, what does a healthy father-son bond looks like?
So, a healthy father son bond will require that father educate himself about his own emotional life. All right. You have men listening to this right now, and they have been raised in a system that has denied them access to their real emotions on a day to day basis. They have to recapture that first, right? I've designed a book to facilitate recapturing that emotion, and it's called Read, Reflect, Respond. It has essays, stories of life on one page, and the facing page is blank, and it's blank for a reason because I want the person who's working on discovering their emotional states, whether male or female, because some women need it as well, to be able to tap into all of the mental resources available to them. So, language is one of those. But visualization is a very powerful emotional resource. We store lots of information in terms of pictures, in terms of movies, right? The event gets played as a little movie in our head. And the way that you access those is visually. So, not in writing words, but drawing, scribbling, all right? Letting the visual part of your brain express itself on the page. And the tactile aspect of that is important too, because we also store memories in terms of action, in terms of the motion that we took in order to engage in that experience. So the very fact that you can take a pen and run all over the page, or that you could tear the page if you want, you have to glue it back together to read the thing on the other side, but just give yourself the permission to start exploring what's packed into your head. Every piece of interaction that you have ever had is packed into this head. Your brain is a marvelous resource. You just need to know how to get there. All right. And a journal book like Read, Reflect, Respond is an excellent path for getting to the early pieces of history that have shaped who you are now. And once you understand those early pieces, you have choice. If you don't understand them, you have no choice. But if you understand them and can go back into the part of history where that approach, that attitude, that thought pattern started for you, you get to decide, do I hold on to this, or do I look at it and say, wow, that doesn't fit. That's not the person that I want to be. I don't want to behave that way towards other people. Then you can release it, right? I think of these early pieces of history as barnacles on a boat, right? You can scrape them off, right? They've accumulated there because of the places you've been and the interactions that you've had, just like a boat. But they don't have to stay with you. You can actually identify them and you can release them.
Okay, so for our listeners who want to read your book, where can they get it?
They can get it at any bookstore in the world. You can walk into any bookstore and ask them to order it. And always, any place in the world, you can get it off of Amazon.
And for our listeners who want to connect with you or want to get some help from you, where can they go?
They could go to my website. That's the easiest way to access me, and that's www.drvanderhorst.com. So it's www.drvanderhorst.com. You'll find all kinds of resources there. One that I suggest everyone download is the feelings sheet. I have on the website under accesses and resources a feeling sheet. It's just a list of 100 or more feeling words. And what you will discover is that when you're in any situation where you're experiencing stress or distress, your brain can recognize what you're feeling, but your brain cannot produce it because you've not been given permission to be interested in, to hold on to label your feelings as you're growing up, but your brain is still brilliant. So you read through this list of feelings, and the feeling experience that you are having will pop off the page. It will just jump off the page. So download the feelings list for sure.
Great, Gloria. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for spending some time with us. It was really great chatting with you.
Thank you. I've enjoyed.